All right, welcome back to Emissaries from the Void, Liminal, whatever number this is.
4.
So we recently talked about Little Man, and
Yep, and I'm just barely getting to the point where I'm forgiving you for it.
yeah. So in that, which was one of our longest episodes,
I don't comprehend how Luckily, it's been dethroned by 2 other movies.
Yeah.
You know, for a second there, I was nervous that the most comprehensive dialogue that we've had about a movie was going to be about fucking Little Man.
Exactly. Yeah. Can't let that stand. But in some of the parts that I cut out, I brought up another little man.
Yeah, he is also another little man.
Not necessarily the OG little man, but a wee little man was he, and his name is Martin Short, and he started a movie called Clifford in 1994.
Although, like, with the film grain and like the way it's shot and like the color grading, it looks like a movie from the 60s. Like,
yeah, it
watch
does.
the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and look at like how the color is graded in that movie. And it, like, when we were watching the movie, I'm like, this movie feels ancient.
Yeah. I think it was just cheap. But that dinosaur world is definitely from the 90s.
That's fair. Yeah, once we get to the end and we see the dinosaur world, like, I was like, okay, that's definitely well, you know, honestly though, this is like a high budget 60s movie, but it's in the 90s, so it's cheap looking.
Interesting.
That's how it feels to me. Like, because the map paintings like that are pretty sophisticated. You know that when the Emperor shows up on the Death Star in episode 6, that's a matte painting. Where you get like the pan back and you see all the stormtroopers and stuff like that. There's a matte painting, and then the only actual part of the scene is where they're walking.
God, I love matte paintings from that era. That's some fine craftsmanship.
That's not from the 60s, but like still same difference. Like the comprehensive ability of matte paintings has been around since the golden age of Hollywood. So.
Yeah, for sure. So the reason, if you haven't heard of Clifford, hopefully you know of Martin Short. If not, correct that immediately. Look up Martin Short, Steve Martin, YouTube. They've been on tours together. Martin Short is known for his kind of like sarcastic barbs that are so well hidden you don't like know immediately that they are barbs. The backhanded compliment is an art that he has perfected.
I believe we call that negging.
I don't know if that's exactly it, but
no, that's what we call it now, everybody. Yeah, that guy that's giving you backhanded compliments at the bar, that's Martin. That's Martin. It's all Martin. We're gonna Scooby-Doo mask.
Damn.
And pull off a mask and be like, it was Martin Sheen all along. Oh no.
Not Sheen. Martin Short.
I know.
Okay. Martin Short, he is in fact fairly short. And that prompted him, presumably, to star in this movie as a 10-year-old child. Full-grown adult playing a 10-year-old child.
No, that's not real, right? Like,
what do you mean?
He's really short, so that inspired him to play a 10-year-old child.
I assume. Like, I mean, somebody wrote this script, and they were like, okay, who can we get to play this 10-year-old child?
Yeah.
And then they see Martin Short walking by. They whip out a magnifying glass. Who is this wee little man?
And I will say, you know, like the face is uncanny valley, but like they did as best of a job as possible making a grown human look youthful.
Yeah.
Like with the makeup that they have on him and stuff like that. And it also helps that they start the movie off with him being like an ancient elderly man.
Right. Yeah. They give you the contrast.
So like it doesn't look as egregious. Like but it's really interesting to see how this movie triggers the same feelings in me that Little Man does in terms of like just looking at it. Like it's very much like the comedy is completely different. It's more slapstick in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a little bit of slapstick comedy at the end of Little Man, but like this is full Looney Tunes from the beginning. Like, nothing about this movie is grounded at all
Yeah.
in any like real sense of consequence or physics. I mean, like, we start off the movie with Clifford as an old man in priest garbs getting increasingly larger things thrown at him by the kids.
Right. Basketball, then a suitcase, and then a child
Yeah.
hit him. Yeah.
So, but I do think that with what they had to work with, they did really do a good job of making him look as youthful as possible.
Yeah.
But he kind of just looks like a goblin from Labyrinth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, he's about... like, Jareth is about to, like, come out of the closet and, like, be like...
Dance,
serve me,
baby,
do everything
dance,
that I say,
magic
and I'll
dance.
be your slave. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But back onto the heart of things.
Should we just, in this podcast, should we just say, like,
Permanent
there's gonna be
spoiler warning.
spoilers?
Yeah, honestly,
Always.
that's the name of this liminal, permanent spoiler warning.
Yeah.
Like, we can't have the kind of discussions that we want to have for this podcast without spoiling the fuck out of these movies.
Yeah.
So, like, ultimately, audience, you know, if you haven't seen any of the movies we talk about, when we tell you what the next movie is going to be, or you see the title of the episode for the liminals, don't watch it if you don't want spoilers.
If you would like to see Clifford, I do recommend it. I think it holds up.
I liked it better than Little Man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, like, for just like watching pure chaos, Looney Tunes chaos unfold in an otherwise normal world,
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's really great because it like hovers right on that line, kisses that line of like
Yeah.
crossing into Who Framed Roger Rabbit territory. Like,
Yeah.
which is an also really good movie.
It's a movie that I have a complicated relationship with.
Oh yeah.
We could get into it in its own liminal, but I've never felt like I really liked that movie. Like, I love everything about it, but as a movie, it does not thrill me. And I've never really
So you appreciate it for its artistic merits, but not necessarily. Yeah, because that's kind of how I feel about Clifford. Is I appreciate it for its artistic merits because I really did appreciate how they used every trick available to them to make Clifford look as realistic as possible, given the fact that it's a grown-ass man.
Mm-hmm. Like, if we're comparing to Little Man, the effects are constantly uncanny
and changing.
Yeah, weird. In Clifford, it's fine for the most part. I have more of a problem with his age makeup in the like bookend scenes.
Yeah, it's not very good. I can agree to that.
I kind of have a thing about age makeup in general that I dislike it, but it's really bad.
Yeah, it is. But it does help sell the youth of him in the flashback. Which, I mean, is it a flashback if it's the whole story? Like, does it still count as a flashback?
Not really, but
regardless.
So this is a movie about a boy named Clifford who is just an absolute menace.
And is also a big red dog.
Secretly, in his heart.
Yeah.
Heart of hearts.
The real big red dog was the one. Yeah,
well, don't see it on screen, but it's there.
This is Clifford after he's been given some antipsychotics to stop hallucinating being a big red dog.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So, like, all the shenanigans he gets up to in this, that's him leveled.
Oh, God. Absolute menace to society. His parents hate him.
Reasonably so. He's a little shit.
Richard Kind just absolutely losing his mind. I've never seen Richard Kind more like frazzled than this movie.
Wait, it isn't like he's the dad on this in the start, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Isn't like that his kind of like type is that he's like a frustrated man? Like I feel like I've seen him in other things where he's like a frustrated guy.
I mostly see him in like eccentric roles.
Yeah, and here he's playing the straight person for the comedy of Clifford, like just straight up like.
Yeah, and Clifford is introduced as this child who loves his dinosaur toy, talks to it, and blames the things that he does on his dinosaur toy, named like Stefan, I think, something like that.
I think it's Stefan, yeah.
Yeah. And he knows that Dinosaur World, this new theme park, has been opened in LA. He really wants to go, but they're flying over LA to Hawaii. And so he goes to the captain's cabin and is like, what would it take to land in LA? Oh, it would have to be an emergency. Devilish grin.
Well, yeah, but see, it wasn't Clifford. It was the dinosaur.
Oh, right, of course.
The dinosaur wanted to go to Dinosaur World. It's all the dinosaur's fault.
Yeah. And meanwhile, we have Charles Grodin. He is this guy who, was he an architect? He's like an engineer, like a civil engineer.
He's a civil engineer or like city planner.
And he's building some sort of like mass public transit system for LA. And he also happens to have designed the biggest attraction at Dinosaur World. He's trying to prove to his longtime girlfriend that he's marriage material and she wants kids. He does not want kids, but he's trying to fake it.
And for the record, he is not marriage material. And
he's kind of scummy.
Fucking crime in this movie. Okay, like, look, okay, this movie makes you sympathize with him because what Clifford does to him is so beyond the pale of like what anyone deserves to just happen to them,
right,
for just existing. That like, even though he is kind of an evil bastard a little bit, like he's got a little kiss of it. Clifford is like evil incarnate. Clifford is like a demon from hell. And like our his uncle, I don't even know character names, honestly.
Okay, so it is Charles Grodin is the actor. I'll have to go back and replace that. Let me get a clean one. Charles Grodin. His name was Martin in the movie.
Martin. Okay. So Martin is got like a little kiss of like sexism and like taking people for granted and just like he wants to marry this girl and he's willing to do anything to make her marry him, even though he, like any healthy person would be like, well, maybe we're not a good fit, because like he buys a house, a whole ass house for himself that doesn't have any extra bedrooms in it, knowing full well that she wants to have kids.
Yeah.
And when she interrogates him about that, he's like, well, what about, you ever heard about fold out bed or something like that? Like,
yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's like, he clearly wants to have this life with someone to fulfill his needs, but is incapable of understanding what that other person's needs are, which makes him a shitty person, by the way. But I think the point is they made him like that in this movie so that when Clifford does what he does to him, at first you're on Clifford's side until it crosses a certain threshold. Like when it's like just harmless pranks at first, like it's literally just like, oh, we put hot sauce in your coffee or your drink or whatever, and then I swapped out your chapstick for lipstick. These are harmless things that embarrass him, but he deserves to a certain level because he kind of is a dick. Especially Clifford from the start was like, I just want you to love me. Like Clifford's such an insecure being that just wants people to affirm him, and there's kind of an interesting synthesis comparison that you can draw between those two, because Martin and Clifford both want people to love them but are unwilling to sacrifice their own desires for other people.
There's definitely a parallel,
right? And it's like, but Clifford is like way the hell, like like the
Dialed
9th
to
level.
11.
The city of Dis is exiling him for being too evil. Like,
that's why I wonder, like, does he want people to love him, or does he just want whatever he wants? And if people love him, then he'll get what he wants.
He values people's admiration of him, because you can see it in the girl that Martin's trying to date. What's her name?
Sarah.
Okay, so Sarah likes Clifford from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And Clifford really resonates with that. And a lot of his manipulations later on are to put him in a position where Sarah will be the one overseeing his care rather
Right.
than Martin. Because not just because he thinks that he can manipulate her, which is true, but also because he really values that, like,
Yeah.
somebody, because he's like at the end of the movie when Martin goes on his whole rant about how, like, everyone will always hate you. And then
Yeah.
future Clifford, the old one, attributes his growth as a person to that
Yeah.
being said to him.
Yeah.
Which I think kind of reveals that deep down inside, Clifford wanted the approval of others, and
Yeah.
he's just too mentally unwell to properly articulate that, so he acts out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is not saying that that's a good thing, by the way. Audience.
Oh, of course not.
Clifford makes a bomb threat using a manipulated tape of Martin's voice and sends it to the fucking FBI.
Yeah.
Like, he ruins Martin's life. He ruins his project. He takes his job away. He basically becomes a wedge between Martin and Sarah, which like, the biggest crime is that Sarah still marries this motherfucker at the end of this movie. Because
Yeah. So I was thinking about this earlier because Martin he starts out as kind of an asshole, kind of manipulative, but because that parallels Clifford's, like, obsession with getting what he wants, there's room for, like, them both to grow at the end of it. But we don't really see that from Martin.
No. Martin,
it's just kind of maybe implied.
Martin just declines. There's no growth for him. He's just, by the end of the film, he's literally had a psychotic break where he puts Clifford on this roller coaster and puts it on max speed until it literally breaks. And it's only by his, like, the fact that he's not a psychopath that saves Clifford from dying, because Martin's, like, sitting there like, no, like, you are literally evil incarnate, and, like, I might be doing the world a favor by letting you die. Overall, I feel like there's just not a lot of substance here. Like, at first I was thinking, like, okay, well, what exactly is the substance of this movie? What is its theming? And its theming is a theme I can agree with, which is that, you know, you shouldn't sacrifice everybody else to get what you want, because you end up alone, and even if you acquire the thing that you wanted after all that sacrifice, it's not worth anything if you don't have anybody to value it with. Like, think about this. Even people whose ego is fed by being super wealthy and the jealousy of others, if you are isolated and alone, then who's going to be there to be jealous of you?
Yeah.
You know, like, even in, like, an evil sense. And so, like, I can resonate with the message of the movie. It's just, it doesn't really have anything else to say. It's not a deep movie. Yeah, it's like,
all.
don't be a dick to other people is the message of this movie.
Yeah. It has a message that I think certainly works better than Little Man. And the ending definitely works better than Little Man.
I think that there is something to be said about neurodivergence, though. Like, this is an exaggerated form of somebody who has no impulse control over their stims and no control over their need for gratification.
Yeah.
And so this is like a hyper exaggerated version of someone like that. And it's kind of showing how society itself and how you yourself can come to be at war with yourself over your neurodivergence, because you don't have the capacity to comprehend why what you're doing is bad. Because Clifford isn't malicious at first. He's just stimming. Like, he's just, like, waking people up and annoying people because he's bored.
Yeah.
And that's a very, like, relatable thing for people with, like, extreme neurodivergence. It's like, they can't handle not having stimulation. And that's, like, where Clifford is at. But then as the movie progresses, he gets more and more overtly malicious and manipulative. And so it kind of loses that metaphor. Like, when I was first watching the movie, I'm like, okay, so we're kind of doing, like, a super neurodivergent person, and movie is going to be about the conflict sourced from them stimming and that kind of stuff. And for like the first third of the movie, I'm like, okay, I can see where this is kind of going. And I thought maybe it'd have a more wholesome bend to it, but as it just keeps going, and it just keeps getting more and more. And then
Gotcha.
Clifford gets an overtly like narcissistic, psychopathic streak in the movie about
Yeah.
just doing things. So that kind of hurts my ability to interpret it in that way. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you might have mentioned that it's kind of like a parent's anxiety over like having a neurodivergent child.
Yeah. If we want to just think about like it's like the worst, it's the worst. It's like the worst phantoms constructed by an anxious parent who hasn't yet gotten to that point of development in their neurodivergent child. Like they see like a young baby with neurodivergence who's doing things, and they're afraid of them becoming like Clifford.
Yeah.
And honestly, we've all known like an annoying kid kicking our seat on the airplane.
Right.
Or we've all interacted with somebody who stims at the detriment of you. Like it's just like it's a thing that we all understand. And so it's just like this hyper exaggerated version. But I think that if that was the intent, it's done very irresponsibly.
I don't think that was in the intent on a conscious level. But it does read that way in that kind of like that meme from the Babadook. It's like, why are you like this? Just screaming.
Yeah. And it's like, and like for like super neurodivergent people, they don't have control over what they're doing or their impulses or their stimming. It's just like a thing that's just like is, but I don't know. I don't like that interpretation as a grander view of this movie because it just doesn't work in a healthy way by the end. So
yeah. And there's no sign of any kind of neurodivergence in old man priest Clifford.
Well, he pulls out the dinosaur and starts talking to it like it's still alive. Like
I guess so.
It's very schizo coded. Honestly, Clifford's schizo coded. Like not like schizoaffective, not necessarily like schizophrenic, but like if you look at like the DSM-5 entry for schizoaffective disorder, a lot of his behaviors kind of fall in line with that. Like just being destructive to your own relationships because you have an inability to see delayed gratification, an inability, a stunting of perceiving delayed gratification is one of the symptoms of having schizoaffective disorder.
Gotcha.
And so like, very well, like, when we see him in the future, it's probably like a therapy medicated. His parents probably did something very radical because like there's no way that was sustainable. Like, to be clear, when we see his parents acting out against him, we're like, oh, he's just an annoying kid. And then he does the thing with the airplane. We're like, wow, this is like a really malicious kid. But Martin only knows Clifford for fucking 3 days. And by the end of it, he is he's debating whether or not murdering him is a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what to tell you, but if after 3 days you're like, maybe you dying is a good thing, you got problems if that's the case. Like, and Martin wasn't a good person to begin with, but like, come on, like 3 days is excessively fast.
Yeah. Let's talk about the sexual assault compared to Little Man, because in this there is some sexual assault that comes from, it's between adults.
We can't get away from it.
Yeah. It's Martin's boss.
Yeah, Martin's boss tries to
coming on to Sarah.
Yeah, because so like Martin's boss invites Sarah to go to this thing in San Diego, and so that's like how Sarah gets removed from the plot, so that like Clifford and Martin can get crazy.
Yeah.
But the story utilizes that opportunity because at some point Clifford tricks Martin into going to San Diego, which is wow. Like this movie, yeah. Anyway, so tricks him to go to San Diego, and then when he is there, he happens to stumble across Sarah and his boss, and he sees his boss put a necklace around her neck, and then he confronts Sarah outside, and Sarah is like, well, no, it's from the company and it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. But then as soon as we have Martin get back on a bus to go back to, or train to go back to wherever they're from, LA, yeah. So to go back to LA, and then yeah, I know it's LA. Why did I get confused about that? Sorry, whatever. Point is, to go back to LA, Sarah gets into a car with the boss, and then the boss tries to like grope her, and then she's like, "Oh, I don't want this," and he was like, "Well, you know, if you think this dissuades me, you're wrong." And then the only thing that stops him from doing that is that she rips off his wig.
Yeah.
I like it better because it's an antagonist of the movie that is doing it, not the main focus of the film. Like, the boss gets his comeuppance in the sense of humiliation, and also this deal doesn't go through, but it's like a secondary, tertiary thing, and so it's unsatisfying because the boss is just a chauvinistic pig, and nothing really happens to him other than just being humiliated. Whereas in Little Man, literally nothing comes of that, to the point that I thought that the kid
never spoken of again.
I thought that the kid at the end was Little Man's kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which might be the case, just for the record.
Yeah, to me, that scene was there to show that Martin was right. Like, his boss was coming on to her and was a threat.
I'm genuinely a big fan of, if sexual assault does not serve a purpose in your story that cannot be served by something else, don't include it. Like, for example, if you're writing a story about sexual assault survivors, then sure, sexual assault is in the story. Or if you're writing a story about how someone is raising a child that was forced upon them by sexual assault, that the sexual assault is necessary for that plot. But then you as a writer should ask yourself if there is a way to tell the same story that you're wanting to tell by removing the sexual assault from the plot.
Yeah.
And look, you do whatever you want to, but the sexual assault in both movies does not do anything for the story. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't progress the plot in any way. It's just, in Little Man, it's just a fucking one-off joke. And in Clifford, it's just shown to see how the boss is despicable, which we already fucking knew because of his behavior towards Martin.
I think behind the scenes, it's meant to like put Sarah back on, shit, what is his name? The main character? We've been saying it this whole time. Martin. Yeah. Okay. I think it's to like put her back on Martin's side, to make it plausible that they eventually get back together, which is again totally behind the scenes.
Also, you could just have cut out the entire San Diego portion of this plot and just not included any of it, and had her come back to his side because Clifford apologizes. So, because the thing is, like, he's like, I wrote 128 letters of apology.
True.
And, like, that could have been the catalyst. Is like, Clifford's like, hey, I did do all these things. Martin really loves you, and I'm sorry. Like, because that was that was Clifford's growth in this movie as a person. So you didn't need to include any of this at all for the purposes of the film, and it could have still been the same. The San Diego stuff, like, because basically Clifford makes Martin go out to San Diego and throws a big house party in his house, and that's the joke. And then, but by the time that Martin gets back to Los Angeles to his house, Clifford has tied himself up in his bedroom, and it's as if there's no damage to the house, there's no trash everywhere. The house looks as immaculate as when he left. So, like,
we see like streamers and stuff.
Sure, but like it's not like a house party happened in this house. Yeah. It's very mild. So it's like, did Clifford pick up for Martin? Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like that whole 15 minutes doesn't need to exist. It serves no plot purpose that could not be served by something else, because again, you don't need to include sexual assault, because you can make people look despicable without sexual assault. You can put people into compromising positions without sexual assault.
Yeah.
I mean, like a good example, right? So in the show House of Cards, obviously Kevin Spacey's a real life predator, but
Right.
before any of that came out, when House of Cards came out, there's a scene where him and this reporter have this exchange where she lets him take compromising photos of her to allow him to feel comfortable sharing information with her because he has these compromising photos of her. So now she has given him some power so that he will then share information with her.
Right.
That is a very perfectly fine, usable, like that's a perfectly like acceptable use of sexual like assault, which it is assault because he's kind of coercing it out of her. But like it's one of those things where it's like that's a acceptable use of that trope in a story and writing. Whereas because it serves a function that no other thing would have served, we needed these compromising things because that is how that works. This doesn't serve any purpose. There's no power exchanged by characters. There's no dynamic change made by characters. We just get to see that the boss is an evil dick.
Yeah.
And then it's used as a joke in Little Man where it's like, oh yeah, I fucked your wife. Like and you fucked my wife. I don't know. That's Ari's take.
Yeah.
Obviously,
yeah.
Tristan, you can feel differently.
I mean, that's fair. The other thing, though, is that when Clifford first sees Sarah, he like kind of imprints on her in some sort of way. I remember that making you feel uncomfortable.
I had repressed that. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, yeah.
So when it came to that scene,
I mean, it's kind of there throughout the rest of the movie. You said it was he wanted to like get her admiration or respect.
Yeah, he does. And you know, like obviously he's 10 years old in the story.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's as sexual as it comes off.
Yeah.
Like it comes off that way because it's all adults. Like there's no real 10-year-old.
Right.
So it comes off that way, but I think in the character of the story, it's showing that Clifford wants it's reinforcing Clifford's desire for gratification at the cost of other people, as first off, and then secondly, it's also showing that Clifford doesn't understand social boundaries in any way whatsoever.
Yeah.
To the point where he just thinks it's funny to scare her in the shower. I don't think he is necessarily affected by her nudity.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like it doesn't really seem to.
I mean, in the shower scene, he doesn't even look. He
right.
just
Yeah.
puts
He looks
the dinosaur
away.
in there.
Yeah. Because he looks away. He's like acting as I pull away. I'm sorry. He's looking away, like, you know, he's bashful about it, like a 10-year-old would be. You know, he doesn't really understand nudity as a sexual concept.
Yeah.
And Clifford's not a sexual being. He says like,
Yeah.
you look, you make that that nightgown looks really pretty on you is not harassment in the sense of like how if like a 30-year-old man had said that to you.
Right.
It was more of like a kid trying to flatter somebody that they want in a maternal capacity. That's how it read to me anyway.
Yeah,
it made me
yeah.
uncomfortable, but it didn't feel like it was crossing that boundary the way that the actual sexual assault in this movie does.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not to say that I have some like hangups about like using sexual assault in a story. It's just that it has to make fucking sense. And I feel like a lot of times it's just thrown in there to like at best make a character despicable and at worst tantalize the audience, which is disturbing to think about, but you know I'm right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. I feel like that's all the like meat there is on this bone, honestly.
I mean, we could pick apart this forever, but I don't want to.
Yeah. Like I said, I enjoy it as a comedy. It's one of my favorite psychotic comedies, which
that's the new genre unlocked in the corner of my screen, but
yeah,
I definitely agree that psychotic comedy. What would you say were other psychotic comedies?
Well, I think Little Man fits into that.
Fuck Little Man.
For much of its runtime. I don't think all of it fits under that heading. And the way that it tries to veer away from that at the end is something that we talked about, and as a negative. Whereas this movie is an example of one that like has a psychotic climax that really works.
You know what it reminds me of?
What?
It reminds me of like a family friendly version of Chucky.
Okay.
Like just like add a little bit of murder to this plot and it would be a horror. It would be like a horror comedy.
I'm sure. I mean, you feel like you could say that about most comedies.
That's true. But what I mean though is like overtly though, like the things that he does to like manipulate, like with just like it's presented as a comedy in this movie, but like literally just with like a change in music.
Yeah.
It would be a like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, because like Clifford acts that level of derangement is there, like that level of like humorous destruction of someone's life. Like if Clifford was a murderer, it would just feel like watching like a Chucky movie. Like it's interesting. Like that's what that's the flavor, like the tip of my tongue. I feel the flavor of those movies and this like in the DNA of this movie.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, especially like the climax, because like the climax of the third one is set in a carnival on like amusement park rides and stuff like that, and like they defeat Chucky by like throwing him into a fan, so it almost has like a similar like ending to it.
Yeah,
because Clifford's defeated by Martin in this movie, like intellectually defeated and physically defeated, like literally given everything he wanted and shown how it's hollow and meaningless and literally falling apart and gonna kill you. And I think that helps reinforce Martin's point that this is not behavior that's sustainable. It's not that like, because he knows he's not going to make a moral argument against Clifford. It's literally this is going to like blow up in your face argument. Like you can't sustain this. It's not that it's moral. Like he's like, I can't morally reason with you, but I can reason with you in a practical sense.
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting. Okay.
See, I did it after all. I pulled meaning out of this. wasn't even looking to, but there it is.
I know this is just a liminal. We've been talking for a while.
It's a liminal. Do
we want to do what was one thing you liked and disliked?
If you want to. This is like a liminal and a half. This is a half episode. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Okay. So one thing that I liked a lot about this movie, I really respected how they utilized the tools at their disposal to make it look interesting. I didn't have any problems with any of the practical effects except the old man makeup, of course. I didn't think that looked good at all. But like the final showdown at Dinosaur World was great. Like that animatronic was great. Like you could see that at like an actual amusement park. It was really decent. They probably blew most of their budget on that matte painting.
Yeah, honestly.
So like I liked the pacing of it too. I thought that like the overall pace and the escalation of the conflict, those are pretty decent. What I'll say I didn't like is that it just is substanceless. It's fucking synthetic meat. Like I've recently switched to vegetarianism and it was like eating an Impossible Burger. It felt like I was entertained while I was watching the movie with you, but now like my stomach doesn't feel like I ate a bunch of meat.
Yeah.
You know, that's just how it is.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, aside from it just being a psychotic comedy, which is something that I love, the acting is really great from Charles Grodin and Martin Short. I can't see anyone but Martin Short pulling off this role.
Agreed.
And the two of them together, Charles Grodin is really great at playing assholes and people who are just at least a little bit pissed off all the time. And he seems very comfortable being hated. And that works really well in this movie. Something I didn't like, I felt like his character Martin like could have had more character growth that we actually were privy to.
Mm-hmm. I agree
That
with that.
would
Or
make it
just like
better.
make him more overtly villainous and make him just not win at all in the end.
Right.
Like-
One or the other. Yeah.
If they just cut him getting married
Mhm.
to Sarah at the end, I would have been perfectly satisfied with his character.
True.
Like Clifford broke this man, and that's what it took to teach him the lesson.
Yeah. The bookend segments in what they said in like 2050 or something, in this like I don't know what like commune, some sort of religious center for at-risk youth or something.
Yeah, it's like a religious center for. Yeah, 'cause he's like a priest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that it doesn't seem like I should like, but it kind of works despite the age makeup.
Well, especially because like you can just kind of attribute the wackiness of the plot to just embellishments of a story.
True.
So it helps ground the movie in a way. Like, you know, because he's telling this story to another 10-year-old to try and get them to see how their behavior is affecting others.
Yeah.
And so Clifford probably didn't do things the same way that it was done. Like when he's telling this story, I read it as him embellishing the story, or just like the fogginess of memory. And obviously he's filling in details that he wasn't present for. So he's already accounting for things as a second party. And so it kind of shows him as an unreliable narrator, but it helps.
Yeah.
Because he's basically telling what amounts to is a fable to this kid.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
All right, cool. Well, join us next week
where we are going to release the episode for Inland Empire.
Yes.
Which is, after watching, my favorite Lynch film.
And talk about meat left on the bone. Like we'd gnawed on that thing for an hour and a half.
And we could still talk about more.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's definitely a film. If we ever revisit films, that's going to be one on the list we're revisiting for sure.
Yeah. A rich text.
A very rich text.
All right. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.